State Senator Barrow Peacock is here. Mr. Barrow, welcome back to Kiel. Thank you, sir. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm glad you and Aaron are back together. Seems like for so long that y'all have been both on vacation and away from each other, and it's just not the same with both of y'all together.
Thank you for that, but the clock is ticking, and she and I both know it. A special session of the state legislature begins next week. Monday the 28th, I think, is the date. Do I understand correctly? Is this a session called primarily by conservatives of both houses?
I would say overall it is, but there are both Republicans and Democrats on the call. Up here, Senator Tarver signed, Senator Milliken signed, and I signed, and also Senator Mills. So both Republicans and Democrats signed. Senator Fields signed in Baton Rouge. So there's definitely some bipartisan support of this call. Now there were some who did not sign, but you've got 70 in the House of Representatives who signed, and 29 in the Senate that signed, and that is a strong block in the legislature asking for a special session.
If so many in both houses are looking to get together, what is it? What we might see something, you guys might see eye to eye on something, and what are those things?
Well, it's a very broad call. It's 70 items are in the call, and so it's a lot of discussion can be had, and it's going to be a very fast pace. By the Constitution, it's limited up to 30 days. I think there's definitely the hope that we can get our business done sooner than 30 days, but there's always that chance of saying we don't know, and we have to also watch and see what's happening in Washington. Does Washington and Congress pass another Coronavirus CARES Act .2 bill? If that, and we're in session, then we need to address those issues too. So, there's a lot of moving parts in this session.
Let me ask you this, Barrow. I'm talking to Senator Barrow Peacock. The unemployment trust fund has dipped below $100 million. A tax on businesses kicks in 6 months from now. What are the options for shoring up that trust fund so that tax doesn't kick in? That's got to be at the top of y'all's list.
Well, and that is one of the top reasons for this call, and that's something that we will discuss, and what ideas can be used. Can you bond those funds out and spread the cost out over a longer period of time? We had one of the healthiest unemployment trust funds in the country with $1.1 billion before the coronavirus hit us in March. We need to do that. Can we use any of the surplus for that? What are our options? And that's why we're going to be in session. And those answers will hopefully come out of the session.
Can you raise taxes during this session? Could you raise taxes on me during this session?
I do not see that really in the call. That this is the idea, and the I don't think the intent of the legislature going in is to raise taxes on anybody. I think the legislature, and we proved it this past in the general session when they were talking about a fee bill, that this is not the right time to be raising fees and taxes on the citizens of Louisiana. We're struggling. We have unemployment that's high, and we need to get our economic engine and our economy rolling. And that's what's going to bring us out of this, not by just raising taxes on the citizens and businesses when they're suffering.
When we were speaking with Representative Alan Seaball last week on this very unemployment fund topic, he said there's very little chance in his mind that automatic payroll tax will kick in 6 months down the line. And he sort of alluded to the special session coming up. And he said, we will figure out a way to L.A. to put that off, meaning the payroll tax. What are some of those ways? What's going on sort of behind the scenes you guys are talking about to keep that from kicking in?
A lot of that's going to be determined in the special session. Can we issue bonds to help alleviate some of that pain and spread those payments out? We saw that some in the special session, and the special session dealing with utility costs and spreading them out over a longer period of time and not hitting businesses and taxes as much so. And we have to see what comes out of Congress. And can we use some of the surplus and CARES Act money that hasn't been spent, can we allocate that to the trust fund? So these are options that are going to be presented. They haven't all come out. This is a very fast-moving process, but it's something we do want to address, and we don't want to see that for those businesses that have survived, say, oh, now here's another tax on top of that. That's not what we want to do to our economic engine in the state of Louisiana.
Can you put a mechanism in place during this session? Is it part of it at all regarding sports betting? Because that could be a chunk of money to the state that we could use right now.
Well, sports betting will be voted on in the November election. And then after that election, then next year when we go into session in April, we will address the taxes, because that's a session that we can address taxes and fees on sports betting and regulation. Now, we will be hopefully very shortly doing fantasy sports contests. We have passed the bills to tax that at 8% in regulation, but the Gaming Control Board has not finalized those regulations. But sports betting is something that the citizens of our state will be able to vote on. In every parish, it would be determined by each parish. And for us in Caddo and Bossier, with our riverboats, with Louisiana Downs, I encourage our citizens to vote for sports betting. It is something that we need to be customer friendly. We want to be part of the basketball March Madness, and people come to Shreveport, Bossier, enjoy our venues versus going to Oklahoma and Arkansas. Now we're in a competitive market, and as it's been pointed out, our gaming revenue is higher than our severance tax revenue in the state of Louisiana. We're in a partnership with the gaming industry in Louisiana.
Mr. Barrow, going back for a second to the C-Ball, what was known originally as the C-Ball petition, which would have ended the governor's emergency declaration over coronavirus. Now there's sort of, do I understand this correctly? There's sort of a 14-day petition compromise. Is that something that's viable? Does it make sense? What's the purpose? What are your thoughts on that?
Robert, I have not read the petitions. The petitions have been circulated in the House of Representatives, but they have never been presented by any senator in the Senate. So I've heard about them in conversation. I've never been asked to sign one by another senator, nor have I read any of the petitions circulated in the House. They haven't been presented and publicly available to me to review. So that would be a question that I would ask you to direct towards a House member, whether it's Representative Seaball or another House member who's
so
involved
your support,
with
pardon me, Barrow, your support of something like that would depend on its wording. It would just
exactly. I mean, we have to be very careful, and some of the special session might allow us to surgically do stuff in a responsible way, bringing the legislature more into communication and input in emergency powers. But we don't want to, and this is my thing, we don't want to tie the hands of our governor to the extent that he cannot react to a Hurricane Laura, that he cannot react to a flood or to a tornado that hit Ruston last year. We have to do it. If we do something, be surgical. But I do think needs to be more input from representative government, from the House and from the Senate, on these emergency powers. People have questions. Why 25% capacity for outdoor venues, yet 75% capacity for indoor restaurants? People are wondering about visiting their loved ones who are in nursing homes and the restrictions. And unfortunately, on Friday, the governor issued that we're going to start following CDC guidelines for visitation, which is a good step forward. But, we need to look at the total picture of the health of our state. And keeping everybody locked up and away from each other has other consequences that are damaging to our citizens versus dealing just with the coronavirus. So it's a balancing act, and being in session will allow us to look at different issues, amend it to what needs to work versus sometimes when these resolutions come through, it's an up or down vote. It's either take it or leave it, like the election referendum that Secretary Ardwin put through. We didn't have the input. He presented a plan. He said, do you want it? Yes or no? You couldn't amend it. So us being in session will allow us to do that and have definitely a tremendous amount more input
Gotcha.
and discussion on how do we do it.